Practice exams. They are a great, useful tool that you have in your toolbox when studying for the A.R.E exams. Well, on this week's episode of A.R.E Minority Connect, I plan to talk to you about how to incorporate these exams into your study schedule. And then I'll give you a list of third-party practice exam companies that I think are pretty good. I'll tell you some pros and cons of each one, and then I'll give you the cost of them because this process is already costly, so sometimes you may need to save a little money. So all right, let's go and let's get into it. Yo, welcome back to A.R.E Minority Connect with your boy Tony. And of course, this week we're talking about practice exams. But first, I need you to do something for me. I need you to click the subscribe button and notification bell so you can get notified when I drop more content. Then I need you to like the video because of course I'm giving you great tips that are going to help you succeed. And then lastly, I need you to share this video and share this channel with someone else. Don't be stingy. You know somebody else can use this good advice. So go ahead and share this video with someone else. Okay, now let's get into it. So, practice exams and incorporating them into your study schedule. Again, I like to say, I'm going to give you my opinion and my advice on best practices I think that are good to help you succeed with taking the architecture exam. But again, tailor this to what works best for you. You are the one that is studying and preparing for these exams. All right, so when I was studying for the exams, I typically had an 8-week calendar study schedule, right? And so for the first 4 weeks, it was nothing but reading material, making my flashcards, making my notes, going through and making sure I have a fairly decent amount of content down before I took the practice exams. Now, I would incorporate quizzes and maybe practice questions. That we will talk about in another video on how to incorporate those. But for this video, we're going to continue talking about practice exams. I know a lot of people sometimes would like to just take a practice exam and just see what happens and see how well I do. I don't think that that's the best way to utilize practice exams because they are what they are. They are actual practice exams. You should be using them in a way that you are actually preparing yourself to actually take the real exam. So back to it. The first 4 weeks, all content, reading, notes. Now the second 4 weeks is when I start to incorporate the actual practice exams. I always like to take 3 to 4 practice exams before I actually sit for the real exam. So in the first practice exam that you take, I like to call it the testing practice exam. And you're like, well, what do you mean testing practice exam? Well, on this first one, this is the one that, this is your first time taking the content and testing your knowledge of the content. So on this one, maybe you're juggling with, do I want to start with the case studies first? Or do I want to do the multiple choice questions first? Do I want to start in the middle of the exam? Or maybe do I want to do 20 questions and then take a break? Well, this is your exam, practice exam that you can test some of those, right? So once you take the exam, sit and take the entire exam. What I like to do is mimic what I'm going to, what day I'm going to take the exam and actually the time of the exam. So for me, a lot of times I took my exams on the weekends because it just was convenient for me. So on the weekends, I took my practice exams, and I took it at the same time that I was going to take my real exam. And that's because as humans in our brains, it likes patterns and routines. And this is one way to actually take some of the nervousness away, because you're going to get into a routine of, at this time on this day of the week, I test. And so by the time you get to taking your real exam, it's just like taking another practice exam because you've done it for the past 3 to 4 weeks. So once you've completed the actual first, practice exam, of course, go through and look at the questions that you got wrong, and also look at the questions you got right. Some testing, third-party testers, they actually provide you with answers and where you can find the answers at and resources. Take the time and actually go through. Don't just look at, okay, they chose this answer, and that's just it. I'll know next time if I see that question again, because guess what? You more than likely are never going to see that question written that way ever again. You will see the content or the context of that type of question, but you will never see that question again. So that's why it's important that you actually go through and read where the information comes from. Like I said, spend the time to go through the questions that you actually got right. So after you've done that, I would take a couple of days and do that. Go over my test and analyze, and then see how well I did in certain content areas. I also though would say, okay, on this one, I tried doing the case studies first. I took too much time. I think maybe that's not what I want to do. I want to do something different. I want to maybe just go back to doing multiple choice questions, or I want to answer only a particular type of question. Well, that's something that you need to, ask yourself after you have finished taking this test practice exam. Now, when you move on to the second one, this is when you're going to now implement what you did or what you think is best for you. So now this exam, you're going to say, what, the case studies didn't work last time. I'm going to actually do multiple choice first, and you're going to do that on this particular exam. Once again, you're going to sit through and take the entire practice exam, however many hours it is, if it's 3 or 4 hours. Again, because our bodies are not used to it. When you're studying, maybe you're studying for an hour at a time, maybe 2 hours, but you're not sitting down for multiple hours and just going through questions. So we want to get you used to that and get your body and mind used to that. So again, take the test, go through and do the same thing. Look at the results, look at the questions, look at what you got right, and then look at what you got wrong. Also, once again, see how you felt when taking the test, the strategy that you came up with. Did it work this time? Was it a more successful outcome for you? After you've done that, it's, like I said, just repeating the same thing. And then, let's say you're going to the third exam. Well, the third exam, by this time, this is the one that you want to do everything possible to mimic what you're going to do in the real exam, or when it comes time for you to take your real exam. So if you're at home, I want you to clear your desk, make sure there's nothing on your desk, make sure you are in complete isolation, just like a real exam. You're in a room by yourself, there's no interruptions, and you're able to actually sit there and mimic what will happen when you actually go and sit for the exam. By this time, this is when you need to do your same strategy And if that is that you've decided case studies will not be first, I want to do multiple choice first, then that's what you do. If by the time you've decided, I'm going to just take the whole exam without any breaks, or I'm going to take the exam multiple choice first, then take a break, then case studies. Whatever strategy that you have determined that's best for you, this is the actual exam that you're going to do that and say, this is what I'm going to do when I take the real exam. Again, you want to analyze and you want to look and see how well you did. You want to make sure that when you're taking the practice exams, I always like to see my scores continue to go up on each practice exam that I take. Now, I know there's one question that you have that people always have, and that is, if I fail a practice exam, should I sit for the real exam? Am I ready? And that question, again, unfortunately, and the answer to that question, unfortunately, is it just comes down to you. For me, personally, anytime I struggled with practice exams and I did not pass them, I did not pass the real exam. And my scores mimicked the same exact thing. So if I was, somewhere in, a 60 percentile or so on the practice exams, I was kind of around that amount when I had taken the real exam. So for me, I knew that in order for me to pass the actual exam, I had to be passing the practice exams, and my scores had to continue to go up and go up. I would challenge myself and I would go like 5 percentage points each time I took a practice exam. So whatever that base number was, I would go 5 each week. It needs to go 5 percentage points higher. And ultimately that would work for me. And I would go in and I would take the exam and then I would pass. But like I said, anytime I pushed it and I said, well, I struggled on the practice exams, but I think the real test, I probably can get past it because the scoring is gonna be a little bit different. No, it never worked. I always failed that exam. So again, you can make that determination for yourself. As for me, and what I think is, if you're passing the practice exams and you're steadily scoring higher and higher, you're on a good track to actually pass the real exam. And plus it builds confidence. You're not going into the actual exam saying, well, I was kind of passing some of the practice exams or not. You know that you were actually passing those, so you have that confidence going on too. So if you decide to take a 4th exam, that's good too. You just would, like you did on the 3rd exam, you would take this 4th one and you would do the same thing, clear your desk and make sure you mimic as much as possible what you're going to do on the test day. One other piece of advice that I have for taking practice exams and incorporating them into your study is make the NCARB exam, practice exam, your last practice test. And I highly recommend that you take the NCARB practice exam before you take the actual exam. All right, so now I'm going to talk to you about my list of third-party practice exams that I think are fairly good. There are a lot of them out there, but these are the ones that I'm most familiar with. So the first one I want to talk about is Black Spectacle. I think Black Spectacle is a great source and a great tool, especially if you want to test out different strategies like I mentioned earlier in this video. It comes with 4 different versions and you can test out those theories. I like the fact that it has a clock. You can take a break. It really mimics the actual exam a lot. Some of the cons about it, some of the questions may not be as long as what you may find in when you're taking a real exam. Some of the questions can be worded maybe a little different. It may be difficult to find out what they're really asking you for, but those are just small and minute things. I really do think it's a good source. When it comes to cost of black spectacles testing, so if you go with their 12-month subscription, you can to just get access to the practice exams, you can pay this $149.17 per month, and that's if you do the 12 months. If you don't do the 12 months, then as you can see here, you can pay $179 a month, and that will give you access to the practice exams. So let's talk AmberBook. I think AmberBook is another great third-party practice test site. The questions I think are written very well. I really like their explanations of the answers once you get done taking the exam. Sometimes they may have links to videos, they may have links to internet content on the internet. They do a very good job of telling you, why an answer choice is chosen. Some of the cons on it, it does have a clock, but that clock continues to run. There really is no function for you to really take a break. So you have to just kind of go through and take the exam, as you go. But that's, something I think is kind of small and minor. When it comes to pricing for AmberBook, so as you can see here, it's $410 a month if you do an individual monthly plan. However, very popular with AmberBook is if you get 6 people or more to join with you, he actually takes $150 off the price and it knocks it down to like $260 a month per person. So that is an option that is very popular. A lot of times if you go to Facebook or any of the M-Carb communities, people are always looking for people to join their AmberBook group to get the discount. All right, next. Let's talk about PPI-2 Pass, which most people, we call it ballast. I think ballast is pretty good. One thing you can do with them is you can generate how many questions you want to take at a time. I do recommend that you just kind of go through and take all the questions at one time instead of breaking it up when you are trying to, take these practice exams. Again, you want to remember that the goal is to try to mimic what you're going to do on test day. Some of the cons for the ballast exam, I think sometimes the questions can be a little too complicated or complex. Sometimes the wording of them can be a little complex. But overall, I think it's pretty good software. Definitely will help you when studying for the exams. Let's look as far as the pricing. So as you can see here, the cost for all 6 divisions is $331.50. However, they have some add-ons. If you want to have everything that is internet-based, so like an ebook, then you can add on these different options, and the total for all of that for 1 year will be $508.50. And also, as you can see, they do offer a financing option with a firm. So if you cannot afford to pay it all at once, you can try to get an account with a firm and finance it. So next, let's talk about Architecture Exam Prep. Architecture Exam Prep is another one that's out there. They offer a guarantee on their when taking their practice exams and actually taking the exam. Their questions, they are okay. Some of them can seem a little simplistic, but overall I think it's still a good source for you to use as you are studying for the actual exam. As you can see here, the cost, it's actually, to just get the practice exams, it's only $59 a month if you sign up for 12 months. So it is one of the more affordable third-party practice exam testing sites. So if you're on a budget but you just really need something, well, you may want to look at Architecture Exam Prep. Lastly, let's talk about A.R.E Practice Exam. So the A.R.E practice exam, it comes exactly from A.R.E. I think this is very great. It was a long time coming, and I'm so glad that A.R.E has done this. Of course, when you're taking it, it's almost like taking the real exam. It has everything just like the real exam, and you get to actually take questions that are probably retired questions, but they were real questions at some point. I think this is really great, and like I said, I think this should always be your last practice exam that you take before you go to take your real exam, because it's going to give you the most experience of what you're going to take when you do your real test. A con for it is that, I mean, you can take it multiple times, but the test, there's only one of the tests. So there's not like if you take it one and you can take another one and it's different questions. No, they're still the same questions. That's maybe the only thing I can say is negative. When it comes to cost, well, it costs nothing because you are signed up with A.R.E. You are paying your A.R.E renewal fees every year, so this comes with it. So there's no cost. So that is an extra good point. Okay, folks, that is it. So that is my list. I'm going to make a video about quizzes and practice questions, because I know there's someone watching this video and you're saying, wait a minute, you didn't say this person or that person. And that's because I think those are more or less great in quiz and practice questions. So hopefully now that you listen to this video, you are able to incorporate practice tests into your schedule more effectively, and you've learned something that's going to help you as you go forward in finishing your race. Until next time, all right, peace.